Helpful for life.
The truth is, my young grasshopper, is that expiration dates are just a guideline. And as you'll find out a little more in the next section, they're not even regulated. And they have to do more with food quality than they do with food safety. The official scientist recommendation is to use those dates as a guideline and eat them by that date or soon after. But you have to remember that anytime a scientist or a regulatory body is going to give these kind of recommendations, they typically err on the side of caution. Otherwise, they'd have people getting sick left and right and blaming them. The bottom line is it comes down to personal preference. If you're extremely risk averse, then don't ever eat anything past the date. You're going to end up throwing away a lot of good food, but you just do you. If you're average, like most people, then the advice we're going to give you should hold pretty good. And if you like to live that YOLO lifestyle, just eat whatever the heck you want. I mean, you may have a little more diarrhea than the average person, but hey, that pizza that was out for a whole week, it tasted pretty good still. So in our opinion, and a lot of others, using your senses should be a pretty good test of whether or not something's still good. But you have to keep in mind that you can't smell, taste, or see a lot of the bacteria that ends up causing food poisoning. You just need to realize that you may get sick even though there's nothing that looks wrong or tastes wrong with your food. That's why things like E. coli breakouts happen. Just store your food well, which we'll give you some more tips on later, and don't stray too far from the dates, and you'll probably be fine. Oh, and if you don't think you're going to use something before the expiration date comes up, freeze it. Unless it's canned, of course. The reality is, you will probably be fine, so let's get down to business. So our advice is similar to picking produce. Use your senses, but this time you get to use all 5 of your senses. And if you have a spidey sense, you can even use that one too. Now I'm going to recommend you do these in order, and if you make it through all of them, then you'll probably be okay. Look at it. Are there any signs of discoloration, anything that looks abnormal? Is there anything growing on it? Whether it be mold, sprouts, or something else? If it looks wrong, it's probably going to taste wrong and you probably don't want to eat it. Smell it. Some foods are just rank when they're bad. And I can tell you this from experience. I've had some roommates and myself sometimes who've left something a little too long and it just smelled horribly. If you haven't had this privilege, savor your virgin nose while you still can, because one day it's probably going to happen to you too. Some foods won't smell horribly though, but they may smell a little off. So if it does smell a little off, use that as a warning. Oh, one thing when it comes to sniffing though, if it's moldy bread, don't sniff it because those mold spores could go up your nose and cause some problems. Feel it. Is it soft but it's supposed to be firm, or firm but it's supposed to be soft? Now, a change of texture can indicate that something's gone bad, but it doesn't always indicate that something's gone bad. For example, with bananas, when they get very ripe, they soften a lot and the flavor changes a little bit. You could argue it intensifies. So you may not want to eat that banana by itself, but it's really good in banana bread or maybe a smoothie. Likewise with bread, when it gets a little older, it starts to get stale. Now, before it molds, of course. Now, that stale bread's not necessarily the best on a sandwich, but it's pretty good in French toast or making croutons out of. And, of course, if you ever touch anything that's questionable, especially if you see mold or something like that, wash your hands. You don't want to mess around with that. Taste it. I know you may be slightly scared, but if you've made it this far, there's a decent chance that your food's okay. Now, as soon as it hits your taste bud, if you can tell something's way off, throw that away and don't even risk it. Now, if it tastes pretty normal and you're questioning maybe it's a little off, this is where it comes down to risk profile. We often risk it for the biscuit, but if that's not you, throw it away. Hear it. Were there any audible gasps or moans from your stomach, from you, or someone else in the room when you went to eat this? Okay, that's not really a warning sign, but I wanted to say all 5 senses. Sorry about that. So you found something that you think is questionable and you want to throw it out. Before you throw the whole thing out, do a quick search online and see if you can save any of it. Especially with a lot of the harder foods, you can just cut off the moldy part and save the rest and eat the rest. For example, carrots and certain hard cheeses are perfect for that kind of thing. Well, that's enough about how to use your senses to tell if you think something's gone wrong. Let's talk a little bit about what the expiration dates actually mean.